Mason, alongside with Morgan Reagan, who's in San Francisco. She'll be hosting Kings pre, half, and post for NBC tonight. And super excited to join one of the premier writers covering the NBA. He's been doing it at a high level for so long. Works for Sports Illustrated. He's the one and only Howard Beck. How you doing, Howard?
Hey, guys. Been a while. How are you?
Dude, so good to hear from you. I know, by the way, if there's any urgent breaking news and you have to end with us, that's completely fine. It's insane today because you just never know what's going to happen. I know it's a rumor trade right now, and we're still trying to figure out the parts moving back and forth if this deal gets done. But it sounds like the Lakers are trying to be aggressive at the deadline.
Yeah, well, look, they have to be. I mean, what a strange scene last night to, on the one hand, have this incredible celebration, very well-earned celebration of LeBron James and this hallowed record that he just took, and then to lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that is in year 2, 3, whatever of this rebuild, and is not expected to even be a playoff team. And here the Lakers are still just struggling to beat the teams they're supposed to beat at home and on a special night. And don't think that doesn't put at least a slight damper on LeBron's, on his night, not on the achievement itself, but probably a little harder to enjoy once the high wears off. And Westbrook, by all accounts recently has not exactly been the most engaged or, happy camper. So he knew that he was going to be in whatever deal, if there was one, for Kyrie Irving. He knows that he's involved in whatever deal the Lakers can make, period, because he's got the biggest movable expiring contract packaged with picks, gets the Lakers somewhere. So I'm sure Westbrook has not been in a great mood, knowing that that's hanging over, knowing that LeBron's been speaking publicly about, kind of pining for Kyrie, whether by name or kind of subtly or not so subtly. Anyway, the reported trade, which all of the usual newsbreakers are reporting, is being discussed. By the time all of those guys are saying it's being discussed, usually that means it's happening. It's very rare that they all get wind of the same thing and then have it be something that was just a conversation. So I'm going to say this thing has probably got legs. I've not made any calls myself just yet. It makes sense. Shipping out Westbrook makes sense. Doing everything the Lakers can do to upgrade the roster and try to make this season meaningful beyond LeBron's record makes sense. The pieces that are involved, D'Angelo Russell makes a lot of sense. Obviously started his career with the Lakers, has grown up a little along the way, and, has always been kind of a hot and cold fit with the Timberwolves. And, that's a team that needs a shakeup too. And we know that the Jazz have been looking to do something with some of their veterans as they continue their teardown / rebuild after moving out Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert last summer. So
go ahead, Morgan.
I was going to say, you look at this Western Conference now and you're seeing some moves being made. But I think for the Lakers, some people want to still sit here today and go like, that doesn't move the needle. I mean, if this all goes down and let's say Beasley, Russell, they're there, but then somehow Vanderbilt gets there as well. Does this do anything for you and the Lakers this season?
So people have a different standard they want to apply to the should they, shouldn't they question about the Lakers, and especially if it involves their future picks, right? The legendary 2027 and 2029 first-round picks that they have been guarding like gold. I think personally, the standard should just be make the season meaningful. Don't have the season be a waste. And that means making the playoffs and then just see what happens. There is no one move, I don't think, that is going to make the Lakers immediate contenders. They just have too many holes. But that doesn't mean you sit still and go, well, all right, fine. I guess we just, let go of the season. Like try to do something. And especially if the trade brings back players who are under contract into next season, well, now you're just that much further ahead of the game. You may or may not make the finals this year. It seems unlikely, but make the playoffs at least. Don't have this be another year where LeBron's, performance and talents are wasted on a lottery team. Push this thing forward, get to the summer, and keep pushing it forward. So I am in favor of even a move that makes them respectable, that makes the season meaningful. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. If we make the standard championship or bust, well, then there is no trade. There are no moves. And then you just sit still, sit on your hands, and have another great year of LeBron James evaporate for nothing. So the players you mentioned, Morgan, like that just think of it this way. When you look at the Lakers starting five at any given night, you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and three players, whichever three it is, who belong on a bench somewhere, who would probably not start for any other team. This is the problem. The Lakers have a roster packed with guys who should be 7th, 8th, 9th men, not 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th even. And so the guys they would be importing in this deal, if that's the configuration, are all legit starters. So they're already ahead of the game. You have a functional starting five, perhaps.
I'm curious too, with the Westbrook element, it sounds like Utah could buy him out if this deal went through. That means he's a free agent. Do you think there are teams, like playoff teams, that would look to add him based on his production? And look, I feel like sometimes maybe it's because of LA. I think sometimes people overstate his production this year and what he brings to a team. But, there is the element of, hey, this guy's won MVPs. He's played at a high level before. What do you think his market value would be if he was a free agent? Would teams be after him?
Even a year ago, when Westbrook's first year with the Lakers was going so badly, and Chris Mannix, my podcast partner, and I talked about where Westbrook could go, whether by trade, then buyout, then sign somewhere. And we did this exercise of going through the list, and it was like, I'm not sure where he fits. Even as a buyout guy, as a minimum salary guy, it's hard to find a place for him because of the way that Westbrook plays. It's a little bit akin to, Allen Iverson's final years in the league, where it was hard for him to adapt to being like just a role guy, or Carmelo Anthony, where he found himself out of the league for a year because he didn't know how to reconfigure his game and his persona, his being, his identity essentially. And Westbrook is built that way, right? Like, yes, he accepted the 6th man role with the Lakers, but I don't think he's done it that happily. And I think he did it with the idea that, well, eventually this will get me to the next place and people will see that I can do this. But Westbrook still plays the same way. And if he's in the fourth quarter in crunch time, he's still taking shots that probably should be going to LeBron James or Anthony Davis. He's still kind of a ball dominant player, even in a 6th man role. I haven't done the exercise again, but if this trade goes through, if it becomes Westbrook to Utah, for sure Utah is buying him out. Where does he go in free agency? Like, I can't believe that his career is just over. That was Mannix's premise a year ago, was like, if this were to happen, a trade and a buyout, maybe he's just done. I'm not there, but if you start looking down the list of teams, it is usually pretty difficult to figure out where he actually makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard talking about it like that and thinking, man, is this where the end of his career goes? But at the same time, when you don't see guys accepting their roles and what they can still produce in the NBA and adjusting to the rosters that they're on, it's going to be tough. And I think now I want to shift gears just to Minnesota, because now they're adding a vet in Mike Conley, a guy that understands his role, that understands his value and what he can add to a team as a point guard. Is the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves, are we going to see Rudy Gobert and Cat on this roster?
That's a great question. So I can't remember if I put it on my list of bold predictions for 2023 a few weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I don't know. What time is it? What
days are it?
At the end of 2022, we were asked to do predictions for 2023. And I think I put on there somewhere that Karl-Anthony Towns would be traded sometime this year. He can't be traded during the season for silly NBA, CBA cap reasons. I think the Cat era is coming to an end, because logically, this is a team where, Ant Edwards is clearly your future. You made such a massive investment in Rudy Gobert, both in terms of obviously the contract, but also what you sent out to get him, that he's going to be there and you're not retrading him. So what is the only two guys who you can now move to try to really shake this up after an underwhelming season are D'Angelo Russell, who apparently could be out the door within hours. And then Karl-Anthony Towns. And Karl-Anthony Towns is the one constant, right? For 7-8 years, great offensive player, phenomenal numbers, and it never leads to enough winning because he's not a defensive player. And the Gobert thing was supposed to patch that up. Hasn't really worked. So I think inevitably you get to that point And you could probably get a decent amount back for Karl Anthony Towns, given his age and production over the years. So I think, look, we've got some season to go here still, and the Timberwolves have, I think, revived themselves a little bit lately. So we'll see. But if this season ends badly for the Timberwolves, however you want to define that, I think Towns out the door this summer seems like a high possibility.
We're hanging out with Howard Beck from Sports Illustrated. 1 year ago today was a big trade for Sacramento. They traded Haliburton, got Sabonis back, and here we are a year later. Tyrese is an all-star. Sabonis is an all-star. Fox likely to be an all-star, I'm guessing, if he replaces Zion or Steph on the team. It looks like it's worked out well for both teams. I'm curious to get your perspective on where Sacramento's at right now. They have 30 wins before the All-Star break, which is kind of insane to celebrate. But in Sacramento, we're like, wow, this is a big-time deal. What do you think of the Kings season this year? And do you think that they can be in that top 6 when we get to April?
So they're third now. They're on a it's funny. It's a funny year in the West, right? So we keep saying the West is wide open, and I think it is, even though the Nuggets have a decent lead and they look like the favorite, but they're not like favorites by a mile. And you have all these teams like, the Suns have underachieved, but they're starting to stabilize and they got healthy. The Clippers were unhealthy and they've started to stabilize and have surged up the standings. The Warriors, as you guys know out there, have had a little bit of a strange season. The Pelicans started off really hot, got hurt, and now they've plummeted, but they're still not that far out of that top tier. And then you got the Mavericks, who just picked up Kyrie Irving, and you could say you could take that any number of directions. So it's a weird year in the West, and these teams are packed very tightly, and the Kings are on pace for 46 wins. So on the one hand, they're third, which suggests, well, they're right in this thing in terms of the Western Conference chase. 46 wins usually suggests, which is the pace they're on, usually suggests you are a good, solid team that's going to be in the playoffs and maybe win a round.
Yeah.
But this year it's good enough to be third in the
That
West.
is wild. Yeah. And I think for the Kings, I mean, you're obviously take a 46 win pace based on where you've been. I think a lot of people looked at, even after this trade and the offseason, they could be a play-in team in the West. So being at that pace, I think, is a big time accomplishment for this group, especially trying to end this drought. Do you think they should make a tweak or two at the trade deadline? How aggressive do you think they should look to be?
It's hard to say when you're a team in this position, right? Where, you're trying to end a 16-year playoff drought. And, you're in the first full season of the Sabonis Fox kind of pairing. First year with Herter there. It's a new team in a lot of ways. And I always say, like, no one team has to carry the burden of a franchise's past dysfunction, right? De'Aaron Fox has been there and Harrison Barnes have been there for a few losing seasons, but they're not responsible for everything that's gone on since, 2006. So I would say you don't rush it, right? There is a moment here, and you could make the case, well, just, you know what, this is like found money, go all in, keep pushing it forward aggressively. There's a case for that. As usual, it depends on what's out there. What is there to do? This trade market is still a little bit stalled by the fact that there are so many teams still in the running for something, playoff, play-in. And maybe this three-way deal with the Lakers, Jazz, and Timberwolves unclogs things a little bit. So it really just depends on what the move is. And since we don't have, we'd just be talking in hypotheticals, It's hard to say. My bottom line is, they're in a great position. They're just at the beginning of this journey with this group, this core, and specifically Fox and Sabonis. I think there's a good case to make to just kind of let it run its course. Although if you see, as usual, if you see a room for an upgrade, especially like a defensive big to put next to Sabonis, maybe you do that. But it's a tough thing, right? The Pacers got as far as they could with a defensive big and Miles Turner, who could also stretch the floor, and Sabonis. The Kings are now in the same position where Sabonis, well, if he's your center, great, phenomenally productive, an all-star, but he's not a rim protector. He's not a guy who anchors your defense. How do you manufacture a defense around this 1-2 punch? So that's the challenge.
Yeah, there's still plenty of challenges with this squad, some tweaks that need to be made, but at the same time, that's the thing that we keep on going back and forth on, is just, are those the tweaks that you make at this trade deadline? Do you ride with this team into the postseason and see what you can get out of these guys? My only thing is, though, now we're seeing this trade deadline. You know, we had our buddy Sam Amick on a week ago or so, and he was talking about fireworks being at this trade deadline. You're seeing a lot of teams getting involved, wanting to make moves. You're hearing the rumblings of all these other big names. It doesn't matter if it's the Raptors, the Nets, the Heat. Speaking of the Nets, you don't think there's going to be a KD move by this trade deadline, right?
Famous last words here, but I would be shocked.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I would be shocked. Look, one, he had to know this was coming, both from the net side of it and from Kyrie's side of it, because he and Kyrie are friends and they came to Brooklyn together. I'm sure there's some part of him that's very disappointed. You know, this was a partnership that they wanted. And when he was healthy this season, they were playing really well. On the other hand, when Kevin Durant made his own trade demand last summer, literally came the day after Kyrie opted in, coincidence or not. When Kevin Durant was, messaging through channels that he was not happy with the state of the Nets and the dysfunction of the Nets, a lot of that has to do with Kyrie Irving, his friend and teammate, who, tanked last season basically by his COVID vaccine refusal, which not only, cost them a lot of games that he couldn't play in, but also cost them James Harden, because Harden soured on the Nets in large part because of Kyrie's lack of availability. So that pushed them to then flip Harden for Ben Simmons, who of course never played last season and is now a shell of himself this season. Like everything that's happened in the last 2 seasons, 2 straight seasons where you should be a title contender, or at least in the mix, based on having Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and some really good role players. And for 2 straight seasons, Kyrie Irving has blown it up. Last year with the lack of availability because of his vaccine refusal. This year by making a trade demand a week before the trade deadline. So some part of Kevin Durant has to see this and go, yeah, the guy's my friend, but he's not exactly doing me much good on the court right now. And they made a good deal. Dorian Finney-Smith's a great defender. Everybody loves the guy. Mavericks loved him. Spencer Dinwiddie, of course, blossomed here in Brooklyn his first time through a couple years back. And, I said at the time that he left for a contract in Washington, he got paid a salary that the Nets didn't want to pay at the time. I thought they should have kept him then. And I swear this is true. You could go back. It's somewhere in the record. I said, you just never know when you've got Kyrie Irving. You might want to hold on to Spencer Dinwiddie, whatever it costs, even as a high-priced backup, because he can play next to Kyrie. He can replace Kyrie. And if for some reason Kyrie's not available or hurt, you would have Spencer Dinwiddie. Lo and behold, they would have been really better off if they'd still had Dinwiddie here last year. So
just insane. It's insane. And who knows how it's going to play out. I feel like it's so unpredictable. As Folsom Andy says in our YouTube chat, UC Davis legend Howard Beck.
Yes.
Howard, we seriously
That's
appreciate
my guy.
you.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, we appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit. Encourage everyone to check out his work on SI, of course, the Crossover podcast as well. Howard, great catching up with you, and we'll talk to you again soon, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Go Ags.
Yes.
Thanks,
Well,
Howard.
Stinger's up too, but it's fine.
Hey.
No. Howard,
Just
appreciate it,
stop that
man.
while we
That's
have
the one
him
and
on
only Howard Beck.